But joining us right now from the Globe and Mail, Paul Attfield. Paul, welcome again to Red Card, my friend.
How are you doing, Anthony?
Real busy day, my friend. Crazy day in FIFA land. Let's get right to it. Let's talk about a guy that is now right in the center of it all. Once again, Sepp Blatter, Swiss authorities putting him under investigation. No surprise, but now Platini as well. Being looked at funny by many accounts in many places of the world as well. Talk about it, Paul.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I said this to you before, but I'm firmly of the belief that if this is ever going to clean itself up, everyone that's currently in FIFA has to go. I don't care what your involvement was, but I think from a transparency standpoint to the world at large looking on, I think anyone that's there right now can't be there anymore. There's so much tainted. Everything is... the word corruption gets thrown around a lot, but I mean, it just has this they can't clean themselves up. It needs a fresh start. It needs, wholesale changes. And I don't care if it's Blatter, Platini, whoever. It just has to be sorted out and flushed out and cleaned up.
To me, it's quite surprising, Paul, when all this other stuff was taking place a number of weeks back, that Blatter didn't just resign and leave all this mess alone, and everyone would have forgotten about him, and we could have moved on to a new fresh page in FIFA. But he has not taken that road. He is continually, moving forward. And now I think this is going to be the real test for him, for FIFA, because as we know, Platini's been very loyal to him, being almost side by side with him. And now we're finding out that he has been really a guy that's been possibly, some way involved in some of these goings as well.
Well, I mean, I think that speaks to the level of delusion that Sepp Blatter has about the situation where, whether he believes it personally or the way he talks about it publicly, I mean, he almost thinks like there's nothing going on, there's nothing untoward about this. And you're right, I mean, had he stepped aside, I think a lot of the focus would have gone away. A bit like when Jack Warner just kind of went away, to kind of stop the skeletons coming out of the closet and things being dug up. But I mean, I just think Blatter thinks he can ride this out. And I mean, it says a lot about the man. I mean, I honestly look at these guys. I mean, I know power is everything to them, but at some point, I mean, he's 84 years old. I mean, he's rich beyond his wildest dreams. I mean, at which point you wanted to step aside and just enjoy the rest of your life in peace and quiet.
Where do we go from here, Paul? Is it where we have to start a new chapter where Blatter has to once and for all remove himself, Platini as well? Do we have to, as you said, clean the slate clean like Ronald Reagan did with all the air traffic controllers when they went on strike, start fresh and bring in fresh new ideas? Do we start to say to ourselves, maybe there should be no longer a FIFA? Your thoughts?
Well, I think the person at the top has to be somebody that's respected. I think for me, that has to be not a business person or peripheral person. It has to be a former player. And names like Luis Figo obviously wanted to, or even somebody just like David Beckham. It doesn't really matter who, but somebody that people look at and they trust, and they give them the credence that things will change. And I don't think rolling out these underlings or people that really aren't notable names in the game. And obviously Platini could have been that guy, but he's obviously so entrenched in the problems that are surrounding this organization right now that he's gone. I mean, he can't do this. But I mean, somebody from outside has to come in and or Pele or something. I mean, it doesn't really matter who, but somebody that people will look up to and go, you know what, that guy's doing this for the right reasons. He's doing it for the love of the game, and he's preserving the dignity and the heritage that we all of this game that we all know and love.
Paul, I really like what you just mentioned there. Beckham, Luis Figo. Let's mix in a South American player of renowned name from the past. Put him in there, and I would also like to put a woman in this. Let's say 3, 4, 5 people committee now to take over that one job that Blatter's had forever and ever as well. Why not put maybe a Mia Hamm?
Mia Hamm, exactly. Yep.
Let's not exclude the women as well. Let's try and get someone from their area as well.
No, I think you're right. I mean, this is becoming more and more of an inclusive sport. And the Women's World Cup in Canada this year was, drew great ratings and was some really exciting football. So I mean, it is the world sport. I mean, it really is. And any race, any gender. It is embraced by so many people around the world, and it's just a shame that at the top level, this is about corruption and money and greed, and it's never been about what's right for the game and what's right for the World Cup. Just things have to change for anyone to start looking at FIFA and trying to believe that they're the guardians and the custodians of this great sport.
Well said, Paul. Let's move on and talk about the other news coming out of FIFA today. Qatar World Cup 2022 will kick off November 21st and end December 18. I don't know about you, Paul, but myself, in that time frame right there, it's cold. It's not great weather here in Ontario and in Canada. We're really in tune to our hockey. Basketball is starting up. I think it's going to be really hard to digest a World Cup getting closer and closer to the winter days and long days here in Canada. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is the World Cup that should never have been. I mean, this is in a ridiculous place. It's in a ridiculous area of the world. There's no infrastructure there. We read about the problems in the press every day about building these stadiums that are destined to become white elephants and sit there years after and disused. And I just find it beggars belief to me that when Qatar put in the bid for this World Cup, that nobody stood up and said, well, isn't it going to be really hot to play there in the summer? Like, is that actually feasible? No, it's good. It should have come out then. That should have been enough to kibosh the bid. But obviously, as we know, greater powers were at work, and to compress it into 28 days as well. I mean, it's so much trouble for some of these guys. I mean, they'll be in the middle of in Europe, they'll be in the middle of their season. The Champions League will be in full swing. The Premier League, La Liga, La Bundesliga. The people that run those organizations must look at this and go, this is just a joke. How are we going to just stop our season for a month and then go right back into it?
No, you're bang on, Paul. And I mean, I'm thinking of MLS. They're wrapping up their season around that time. A lot of these guys will be exhausted. A lot of these guys will have a ton of injuries. How are the guys from, let's say, a USA or a Mexico or whoever coming out from MLS going to compete in a World Cup that's just beginning when they've wrapped up their seasons? It's insane.
Well, I mean, November is MLS playoff time. I mean, that's when, the wheat is separated from the chaff. I mean, that's when, the MLS Cup last year, I believe, was in just December the 1st or 2nd. I mean, it was, so what are you going to do? Are you going to bump the season back a month? So, TFC will start playing in February? I mean, none of this makes sense. And it's a shame for me because I really honestly believe that this could have been prevented if the biggest European leagues and the biggest European clubs said, you know what, do what you want, but we're not giving you our players. So good luck having a World Cup without Messi or whoever the dominant players will be at that point in time. But if Barcelona, Man U, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Chelsea, whatever, said, you know what, go right ahead, do whatever, but this isn't a real World Cup. We're not going to give you our players, so have fun playing that tournament that no one's going to care about.
Paul, the number one league in the world right now, the league that has the best facilities in the world right now is England. And I would say next after that is Germany and then Spain. I think if these three step up and speak loud and say, look, we're not taking part, we're not going to, play in this 2022 World Cup in such a crucial time for a lot of our players that, as you said, Champions League, their own domestic leagues, on and on. We're not going to take part. I think especially if England, Spain, Germany, Italy speak up, then I think that something can change.
I couldn't say it better. I mean, these leagues have so many of the world's best players, and they will continue in 7 years' time to have many of the world's best players. So they really hold all the cards in this situation. It's just a shame they won't put their necks on the line and say, you know what, we're not going to stand for this. This is bad for our product. We pay these players. We're the ones that market this sport, on a 12-month a year, 365 days a year basis. The club game does drive the sport. I mean, it really does. The Champions League is the best football in the world. It baffles me that nobody's going to just, everyone's just kowtowing to FIFA at this point, especially given everything that's going on with them. And they just can't. This is a chance to make a power play and really drive home the message that, you know what, we will cooperate with you, but you don't own us. You don't run the rule over us, so we'll tell you what to do.
Paul, in the last minute or so, I want your thoughts on possibly the owners of some of these major clubs like Arsenal, Liverpool, Man U, on, Juventus, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Real, all these major clubs. If some of their owners decide that, guess what, we're going to incorporate in the contracts in 2022, in this time frame, you're not allowed to go play for your country. You need to play here or your contract is null and void. Do you think these owners are going to start stepping up and saying, hey, we've got millions upon millions invested in our player, and if they go to play for their country, God forbid they get hurt, then, we're up the creek in many ways, where if it was at the end of the season, you've got at least 2-3 months to recuperate before the next season starts.
Yep. Oh, 100%. I mean, could you imagine that? I mean, forget for a minute it's 7 years away, but let's say whoever, Barcelona have as their key guy. Messi may still be there, but it won't, they'll have another budding superstar or whatever club. And they start the season and they're, 10 points clear of Real Madrid at this point, come, the start of the World Cup, and their guy goes down playing for whatever country he's playing for. And it costs them, tears his knee up, tears his cruciate ligaments. I mean, the fans will be livid. I mean, it baffles me. It really does. This is just the most nonsensical idea in the history of the game, almost, to have this World Cup in the middle of the season. And I unfortunately, I don't think the owners will do that. I mean, it would require like across the board trust that we're doing the right thing for the game, and we're going to fix it, and we're going to move the World Cup to England or whatever, But I just don't see it happening at this point.
And that's sad to hear, Paul. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. Never a dull moment in FIFA land, never a dull day in Switzerland. News coming all sorts this morning. Paul, thanks again for joining us. Keep up the great work at the Globe and Mail, my friend.
Thanks very much, Anthony. Have a great day.
Paul Attfield of the Globe and Mail always makes time, is always gracious, and we really appreciate him joining us. We'll take a quick